listen, we hear you that it's hard to find solutions to motivate kids to want to participate and want to do the things that they're supposed to be doing at school. And so for some students, like maybe this has worked or maybe it works. It's worked in the past for other generations, but I picture nowadays what kids' typical day looks like in an elementary school. And it's so different in 2026 than it was in, 2005. These kids are spending so much of their day on a laptop, on a computer, doing state standardized testing, and they are just not moving. They're not getting enough regulating input throughout their days. And it's different. And one of the only times for like an 8-hour day that kids get to move and regulate is that 30-minute recess time.
Welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla,
your go-to podcast for practical insights on sensory processing and development from an occupational therapy perspective.
If you've ever bought a kid's multivitamin only to have your child take it once, taste it, and refuse it forever, you know how frustrating that can be. A lot of parents want to support their child's nutrition, especially if their kiddo is more of a selective eater, but the reality is that many supplements just don't work for sensory sensitive kiddos. The taste, the texture, the smell, sometimes even the color can be enough for a kiddo to say, absolutely not. And once that happens, it's so hard to get them to be open to trying again. That's why we created Best Part Kids Multivitamin. It was formulated with a registered dietitian, Britton Coleman, who specializes in supporting kids with selective eating as well as sensory challenges. Instead of gummies or chewables, it's a simple powder that you can mix into any drink. And the formula focuses on high-quality bioavailable nutrients that help fill common nutrition gaps without megadoses or unnecessary extras. We created Best Part for real families. It's sensory-friendly, thoughtfully formulated, and it's meant to be a gentle daily support, not something that's overly complicated. If you want to check it out, you can learn more about Best Part Kids Multivitamin in the link in the description.
Hey there, welcome to All Things Sensory by Harkla. We're so happy to have you here today. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Amanda.
And we are both pediatric occupational therapy practitioners. I'm an occupational therapy assistant.
And I'm an occupational therapist.
And we are here to talk about recess. Dun, dun, dun.
Yes, we are.
You've probably heard that recess, or you probably already know that recess is often taken away as a punishment in a lot of schools. And we're here to tell you that that should not happen.
Yeah, a nervous system and sensory standpoint, that is just going to be counterproductive every time.
Yes, and we're going to break it down today. We're going to explain our thoughts. We're going to say what the research is showing when it comes to recess, and really just explain that, recess should be treated as another subject. It shouldn't be a reward. It shouldn't be something that can be taken away. It should just be part of the daily routine that every child has the right to participate in.
Yeah. I'm a occupational therapist in a school system right now, and I see it time and time again. There are no laws in our state that protect recess as a right for these students, and so it ends up being the number one thing that teachers and educators use to, punish students if they're not getting their things done or if they're acting out. And it breaks my heart because I know from an OT perspective, these are things that are actually beneficial for our students. And yeah, we just need to better support them.
And I think part of the problem is a lot of teachers may not realize the standpoint that we're coming from is why recess is so important. They want their kids to comply. They want them to get their work done. We understand that academics are important, obviously, but we can't ask a kid to participate in school and academics and do well if they don't have an organized nervous system, especially if they're on the sensory seeking side and they crave that input and they're getting in trouble for trying to meet that need. And then you take away recess, and then it's just this snowball effect of kids acting out because they're dysregulated and they need more and those needs aren't getting met. And then they're coming home and they're miserable at home, and it's just an ongoing cycle.
Yeah. And listen, we hear you that it's hard to find solutions to motivate kids to want to participate and want to do the things that they're supposed to be doing at school. And so for some students, like maybe this has worked or maybe it works. It's worked in the past for other generations, but I picture nowadays what kids' typical day looks looks like in an elementary school. And it's so different in 2026 than it was in, 2005. These kids are spending so much of their day on a laptop, on a computer, doing state standardized testing, and they are just not moving. They're not getting enough regulating input throughout their days. And it's different. And one of the only times for like an 8-hour day that kids get to move and regulate is that 30-minute recess time.
And on top of it, they're typically going home and playing video games, watching TV, getting on an iPad or a phone or something. And it's just constant. It's just constant screens and disconnect.
Yeah. Or structured sports, which I love structured sports. And I think it's so great for kids to be, participating in soccer and softball and all of the things. But recess is the one time where kids get to have open-ended, free social play for once in their life with their friends and their peers. And it's not so structured.
Yeah. I mean, my son right now is obsessed with school. He's in like pre-K. And I'm like, what'd you do at recess today? I played dinosaurs.
Love that.
Just running around like a dinosaur, with the arms as well. I'm like, you know what? You go be a dinosaur and you run and you roar and you stimulate that vagus nerve and you enjoy yourself,
Imagination is huge. These kids, I feel like, don't really have imaginations anymore. Like they're playing these online games that are doing it for them. We want to give them every opportunity to be a kid and have fun possible. And if we, especially like these kids that are labeled as behavior kids, they might be losing their recess 4 out of 5 days a week. And it's not right.
So we're going to change that here, and we're going to break it down a little bit more for you and hopefully give you some reasons as to why you should continue giving them recess and kind of just understanding it from a scientific lens, not just they're being naughty so they don't get recess lens. And we have absolutely nothing against teachers. This is not anti-teacher. This is not anti-anything. This is pro-regulation. This is pro-understanding and awareness. Yeah. And we are just trying to do our due diligence as pediatric therapists to promote this information that maybe no one has taught this to teachers or no one has had this conversation. So unfortunately, it kind of falls on our shoulders.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited to dig into this. Yeah.
So when it comes to why recess is so important, what is it actually doing for the brain? And I think really it's constant sensory input from all avenues: proprioception, vestibular, honestly interoception, learning to dress and get the cold temperatures and the hot temperatures and identify how they feel internally.
Yeah. Also, you think bilateral coordination, that emotional reset that these kids actually get when they're out there, the ability to like cope and have conversations with your peers too. Maybe your peer upset you in class that day and you kind of get to hash it out. Hopefully there's no, fist flying, but you have an open time to just chat with your friends in an appropriate way of like, hey, that was hurtful what you did to me. Like those social skills and those emotional reset periods of time need to happen. Yeah. Stress hormone reduction is happening out there on the playground.
They get the sunlight.
Oh my gosh, vitamin D.
Yes, we need more sunlight. They are jumping. They are working on ball skills. They're climbing. So from honestly the whole child perspective, there's so much good that comes from just getting outside for 30 minutes as well. Even digestion, right? You think about typically they eat lunch and then they go outside and play. Like that movement after we eat is so good for digestion as well. So really what it comes down to is the benefits. There's definitely more benefits from kids who participate in recess than I think, kids who maybe don't participate, or even the ones who sit down while they're at recess, or they maybe read, or maybe they just like walk around the track. They're still getting beneficial time outside, unstructured moments where they can just chill and have like that brain break that they need.
For sure. And I even, I think if absolutely necessary, to like remove recess or add a punishment, as long as the student does not have any, special sensory processing needs that we know of, at least allow them to come outside and walk the track.
Yes.
Maybe they're not allowed to go play with their peers today. They got in trouble in the classroom. That's all right. But at least let them get outside, get some sunlight, and get some movement in.
Yeah.
You can still structure it as the teacher or the adult, but we still got to let them move a little bit.
Exactly. I love that. Sorry, you have to run 4 laps around the field.
Yeah, hey.
Before you can play. The faster you run, now you can go play.
Yeah, I love that. Make it purposeful.
Exactly.
Because really, recess is not supposed to be like a break from learning, right? It's supposed to be like a regulation tool that helps make learning possible.
Exactly. And we did find that there are some states who is it a law?
They have laws that protect recess. Like, you cannot take recess away.
In California and Washington right now.
Yep. And there's a few more, especially like the Northeast. I think like New Jersey, Rhode Island, maybe Illinois. A couple states are in the process. And I think this is incredible to have laws in place that protect recess. And honestly, if I had a child that was on an IEP or a 504, especially if they had a BIP, like a behavior intervention plan, I would be advocating for my student to have it written in writing that, you cannot remove recess for my child. They need that for regulation and sensory support.
I think that's so helpful to remind parents, because I know we have a lot of parents who listen, who have IEPs and 504s for their kiddos, that you need to make sure that it is written in there that you may not take away recess. If anything, maybe right in there, they get a few extra recesses.
Right?
We're really working the system.
I mean, right? Could you imagine? Like, my kid gets recess 4 times a day. I think it would be so helpful for them.
I do
but
too.
At least at the minimum, talking with your team about putting in there, hey, this is not a reasonable punishment for my child if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
We got to come up with something else.
But also, as a parent, you probably can provide some alternatives. Like, this is what actually works if you want my child to, pay attention and not goof off and like do what they need to do. Here's what you need to do. Have them do X, Y, and Z, or have them do 27 push-ups, or something like that, where it's movement based rather than removing the movement. Yeah.
I think the more involved and active you are as a parent with your child, especially if they are on an IEP or a 504, just the better the outcomes are going to be, and the more the team is going to understand you and your child and their needs. So just be involved and communicate with your team often.
So from a nervous system standpoint, when it comes to removing recess, I think it's helpful to remember that our kiddos who are dysregulated often misbehave more, right? So they are the ones who are acting out. They are the ones who are causing more problems in the classroom because they need more movement and they are dysregulated. And the one thing that often works the best is movement. So adding in more movement breaks, whether it's in the classroom, whether it's outside of the classroom, adding in more specific structured movement is going to be so beneficial. Plus, it's going to help reduce overall stress as well.
Yeah, kids who struggle the most are almost always the kids who need recess the most.
Yep.
And what we're providing them is the complete opposite right now in our school systems.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're going to see, more fidgeting, less focus during your instruction time. And we know that that's ultimately the goal of the teacher and the school, is like, hey, we need our classrooms to function better. So like, how can we get this child to listen and cooperate better? So we know it's coming from a good place, but that's why we're here to help, educate debunk on what's happening and why they're actually getting worse when we're removing recess and why it's not working.
So then if we think about our sensory seekers, these are the kids who their nervous system needs more input in order to sit down and focus and learn and attend. They have a higher sensory threshold that most often isn't actually getting met at school. They need more input in order to be able to stay focused. So that's why we want to facilitate giving them that movement. And again, if you do need something to, include discipline, make it an outside activity, make it a movement activity, so that way they still can go outside, but maybe they aren't, playing football or soccer with their peers. They're running instead, and just make sure that we are seeing it from that sensory seeking perspective. So when it comes to what the research is saying about removing recess, I think it's important to discuss that it's not just us saying, don't take away recess, even though we are valuable, credible sources.
Yeah.
But also, we should read what this article says for sure.
The American Academy of Pediatrics very clearly states that recess should not be removed or withheld for punitive or academic reasons. It provides us essential cognitive and social and emotional physical benefits. It's stated right there. There's also longitudinal evidence in another article that I read. That one, talks a little bit about more of its like punishment for misbehavior and like how it's actually counterproductive for that as well. So it's showing up in actual research articles that this is not an appropriate means of punishment for students.
Exactly. It actually ends up making kids more stressed out, more sedentary, more unhealthy. And we know that when we include movement in learning and academics, we see improved test scores. We see improved overall academics and social skills and emotional regulation skills. So it really should be a non-negotiable that movement is included in every classroom. And I think too, when it's like, well, there's not enough time, it's like, you can do your math facts while you're jumping up and down, incorporate it with a rhythm, you can, they don't have to be sitting down at their table while they're doing their handwriting. They can lay on the floor,
Yeah. Sedentary behavior has time and time again been correlated with poor health outcomes for all populations and all ages, but specifically for our young kiddos.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, what are we going to do? What could a classroom potentially look like? And we joke that, if we ran classrooms, here are some things that we would include. Not that we're saying teachers are doing anything wrong, but from an OT perspective and from a sensory perspective, here are some things that we would include.
Yeah. First thing, I think for any parents listening is, I know mornings are super rushed and quick to get your kids up and out the door, but if we can incorporate movement, heavy work, bursts of regulation first thing in the morning, I think we're going to see better outcomes throughout their day. I think so many of our kids are woken up and just abruptly pushed on and into the world and onto their day, that they're starting their day dysregulated, and it just leads to chaos at school.
Yeah. Even one simple thing that I do, I drop my kids off at school in the morning, and there's the top of the parking lot and the bottom of the parking lot. And I always park on the top because we have to go down the stairs to get into the classroom. And I'm like, this little bit of input will actually help in the long run. Yeah. Even though they're like, oh, well, why do we have to park upstairs? I'm like, well, because we need more movement this morning, you know? And I explained it to them too. Like, those little changes actually go a long way from a sensory standpoint.
Yeah. And I feel like just hearing you say that, I'm like, I am the complete opposite. I'm like, get me as close to the door as possible. I don't want to move.
You're going to rethink all of your decisions.
Yeah. No, but that's such a good, easy thing that parents can change up in their morning routine.
Yeah. Even having them like jump out of the car or jump into the car or close the door, like all of that is proprioceptive input and beneficial, and run down the hall in the morning, and as before you help them get dressed, give them like a lot of tactile input, have them jump on their bed, crawl to the bathroom to get your teeth brushed. Like little changes go a long way.
One of the things I do with my OT students, a lot of them actually, even if they had not a great session, maybe they weren't listening as much as I would have liked them to throughout the session, at the end we almost always stop for water at the fountain, and we always skip back to class. And I think some of the teachers are like, why are you teaching my student to skip? I need them to walk in line quietly and calmly, but it is so fun to watch them just like come to life and watch them try to learn how to coordinate the two sides of the body and the brain together. Skipping is such an underrated skill.
Absolutely.
And it helps, regulation so much. So that's a simple thing that you can be doing. I mean, obviously I know you can't have a full class of 30 kids skipping down the hall all the time, but especially she's like, why not? Maybe be a little chaotic with all the students. I'm in the schools, I know those hallways are tight, they're small, but especially if we have those kids that we're like, all right, there's something going on here, hey, go get a drink of water, go skip there and back on your way, and then when you come back, hopefully we can sit down and recoup where we where we at.
I love that.
Yeah.
So simple, but you have it's such a high ticket item.
Yeah. Water and skipping, not that hard.
And if you want to add even more, have them gargle the water before they swallow it. It stimulates that vagus nerve, helps to regulate, a little more input.
Yeah. I love all this vagus nerve talk today.
I know.
So good.
So another thing that we would probably do in the classroom is making sure that we have tons of flexible seating options, standing desks, floor work, short desks, so that way they can sit on the floor. Have them hold their paper up on the whiteboards around the room and have them stand while they're holding their paper simultaneously. Therapy balls to sit on, wiggle seats, tea stools. Yeah. I just feel like we should make it normal. If you can't see me, I'm quoting normal to just have a space in the classroom where kids can come up and say, oh, I need a wiggle seat, and they grab a wiggle seat. And you've already talked about the expectations before. That's when the OT comes into the classroom and says, hey, here are these cool chairs that you can use, and you teach them why they're beneficial and how they're tools and not toys. And, these are all things that you can use if you need, and they're just there. Yeah. And that way there's no awkwardness like, oh, well, Billy Joel, he needs a wiggle seat. About Billy Joel, why Billy Joel? I don't know why Billy Joel came to my mind. I like that. But it's just, it's normal to have those options available.
Yeah, and I think it's important to know, like, with all accommodations and fidget toys and alternative seating, like, it's gonna be a little silly the first couple weeks that you introduce this. Of course, your students are like, "Ooh, of course we want to sit on this cool seat." But after it's constantly available, the first few days are gonna go by, and your kids, if they don't need it, they're not gonna use it. They're gonna want to sit in their normal chair if they don't need it. But I know so many of like the resource teachers at the school I work at, they're in more of those small group settings. They have so many great alternative seating options, like big fluffy chairs. They'll let kids lay on the floor, even like laying underneath a small desk and like working with the paper on like above you, the wobble, like so many good seating options, and the kids that need it use it, and the kids that don't, exactly. And so it just becomes second nature when we make it normalized.
Which it should be normalized for sure. So if you take one thing away from this episode, don't take away recess. Wait, did you get that? Yeah. If you take away one thing from this episode, don't take away
recess. Yeah, I like that.
Okay, well, there you go.
There you go.
Recess, take it away. Don't let it be recess that you're taking away.
Recess supports learning. I mean, at the end of the day, it's just fact. So taking away recess should be the very last minimal response. I think every state should mandate. We can't remove recess, but that's to our lawmakers. Again, this is like our second episode.
I know. For all the lawmakers listening.
All the lawmakers out there,
give us a call.
Please don't take away recess. These kids need it. And it's not a reward. It's part of their normal class routine, just like art and PE and language arts and science. Recess is part of their curriculum, and we shouldn't be removing it.
Absolutely. So share this episode, honestly, with anyone and everyone. Tag us on social media when you're listening at All Things Sensory Podcast. Make sure that you're subscribed because we drop a new episode every Wednesday. Make sure that you give this a thumbs up because it was so great and we learned something new, and we hopefully have something to take away and teach other people as well. So we appreciate you being here, and we'll plan on seeing you next week. Thank you so much for listening to All Things Sensory by Harkla.
You can find links and resources from today's conversation right in the description of this episode.
If you want to connect, ask a question, or share what resonated with you, come find us on Instagram at All Things Sensory Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
As a podcast listener, you get 10% off your first order at Harkla. Just use the code SENSORY at checkout or head to harkla.co/sensory to get started.
We're so grateful you're here and honored to be a part of your journey.
Everything we share here is for educational purposes only and reflects our professional experience. It isn't medical advice. Please consult your healthcare provider for support specific to your child.
Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time.